Welcome to the Good News Bay podcast, where we are making Bay County brighter one conversation at a time. Today we have with us as a special guest Parker McClellan, and we are so excited to have him with us. He is the executive director at the Northwest Florida Beaches International Airport. Has been there for, is it 9 years or is it 10 now?
Actually, I've been there
or is it longer than that?
12.
12 years.
Yeah, I got here in 2010, just after the airport opened, as the deputy.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to go ahead and kind of just talk with you through your background just a little bit, if you don't
Absolutely,
mind.
let's do it.
I've been excited to be able to interview you for some months. Everybody's told me I need to talk to you, and we've seen tremendous growth at the airport. Just on a kind of a personal note, I wanted to kind of know where you came from, and before you came to Bay County, were you in the Orlando area?
I spent 20 years at the Orlando International and Orlando Executive Airports in various leadership roles. Always on call my entire career. So between pagers and cell phones, I've been there the whole time.
And prior to that, just by way of background, you come from kind of a Navy family, so you lived a lot of different places.
My dad was a retired Navy captain, and we moved all up and down the East Coast, out of the West Coast, and a variety of different places. I've lived in almost every major city on the East Coast.
I think you come with a lot of different experience, which is tremendously helpful for us as a community. I'm just going to say right here at the beginning, I'm really thankful for the role that you've served, and can easily see that it has been very important to have someone like you in the role that you've been in over these years. These have been some tumultuous years for our community, and you saw and kind of knew what was going on before we entered into a hurricane and a pandemic and all that kind of stuff. And so let's take just a few minutes to talk a little bit about the history of the airport. We know that we call it the old airport and the new airport, right? There's the space that we know is Sweet Bay,
yes,
which is going to be an incredible housing development. And that was the old airport. A number of years ago, the decision was made to move the airport north. And I think you used the term regional airport versus like a local airport.
So we were a downtown airport. So I'll use terms like PFN, which was the old identifier. So we'll use PFN or the old airport when we're talking about it. So that was a downtown airport, very small market. You really drew from just Panama City.
Right.
When we went out to the new site, to ECP, or the new airport, because Northwest Florida Beaches International is a mouthful. So we've really tried to brand it as ECP.
Okay.
So that can mean a lot of different things, whether it's Emerald Coast Paradise, everyone come play, or easy, convenient, and painless. So whatever marketing thing we need to do, we try hard to do that.
Says a lot about a real fun beach, doesn't it?
It does. We're all there too. It's a great place to live, work, and play, since we're using old terms.
So when we use the term throughout this podcast of ECP, we're talking about the Northwest Florida Beaches International Airport.
That's correct.
Okay.
Because I tend to drop right into ECP easier than...
And when they're looking for tickets.
Yes.
It's ECP.
Exactly. So when you're doing your search, you get a choice, and it's ECP is the choice that we want everybody to pick from.
Cool. So
we were the first airport designed after 9/11. So a lot of the things that we have in place reflect the security measures that were designed right after 9/11. So there have been some changes, and there's some ways that you can work around it. In the future, you'll probably see us migrate to some of those changes, but it's all safe. It's all going to be secure. But what we want to try to do is make sure that we continue to provide the best place for our visitors and our residents to be able to travel to and from.
It says here that the new airport's terminal is 125,000 square feet. It's got 7 gates, a runway that's 10,000 feet long. It's 150 feet wide. That is a big upgrade over what we had before.
Yeah, the 6,000-foot runway. It was, I was not here, but I know that it was a really tough decision that our community made, and the leaders my predecessors as they built this new airport.
Yeah.
And it's just been a real honor that we've been able to kind of make it success and exceed everyone's expectations.
One of the things that I think I would toss out there, you and I've talked enough for you to know I've been around Bay County for most of my life. And when that decision was first made, many of the locals, I think, thought it was crazy. And I read quite a few leadership type things, and one of those talks about vision, and related to vision, it's only crazy until it happens. And nobody, I don't think, could foresee the amount of growth that we've had as a community. And we're still kind of in shell shock that things are happening so quickly and at such a fast pace. But we definitely are seeing the value now in having relocated that airport.
We look at the numbers at the old airport, and I think we're going to talk about this in a little
Sure.
while, but let's, if you mind, we'll jump
Go
right
Go
to
for
it.
it.
Is 312,000, 325,000, depending on where you look. Total passengers the last year at PFN, or the old airport. Last year, we finished out the year at just a squeaky bit under 1.6 million total passengers.
I looked at that earlier. That's just for those that like it different ways. Like, I'm not a math guy, but isn't that more than 5 times the number of passengers?
Yeah.
That's a lot.
That's a lot of people. And we look at that growth and say, okay, what do we need to do to prepare for the future? And those are some of the challenges that we face. How long is we've all, I think there's no argument that the Panhandle and Bay County and the region have been discovered.
Right.
What are we going to do to prepare for that future? And as we look at that, we've got design projects underway to say, let's grow. Mm-hmm. How can we grow? We want to grow very methodically so that we remain competitive in the marketplace, because we do have 4 airports in the Panhandle, and we want to be number one. We are number one, especially in my book. But
absolutely,
we want to keep working for that.
Right, and we are staying competitive amongst those. From what you had shared, where the market share is very consistent.
We consistently have 22%, probably between 19 and 26% of the market share in the Panhandle, and we've had that since day one.
Well, I've observed a few things as a local. I've noticed that these direct flights that keep getting added, and I guess I can mention these nonstop daily flights at this point. We've got Atlanta, Charlotte, Dallas, Houston, Nashville, Washington, D.C. We got seasonal destinations at Austin, St. Louis, Kansas City, Denver, Chicago, and then there's some others. And it's listed as new flights to Denver, Kansas City, and Washington, D.C.
Those are really kind of return flights that are seasonal. But I think there might be some new ones coming up this summer.
Well, I know there's a lot of people that I grew up with and people that I interact with, friends of ours, that love to go to Nashville. And to have a direct flight to a place like Nashville or a place like Houston, some of these bigger cities and amenities, that's kind of a big deal, right?
Nashville is one of our biggest destinations, and when there's fare sales, I can tell you there's a whole lot more people coming out of here going to Nashville, because how can you beat the airfare going to Nashville for a long weekend?
You really can't beat that. I was looking at the objectives of the airport. Like, what is it you guys are trying to accomplish? And it's described as like a 3-legged stool as far as the development. You were talking about the philosophy and whatnot. One of those is to provide expanded air service to the community, which clearly is what we're describing. Creating jobs is a second one. But then the third one I wanted you to explain, because I think it may actually go a little bit with what we've been describing about being able to go other places and see other things. But enhance educational opportunities for residents. What does that have to do with?
So when they built the airport, and I go back and talk to the community leaders,
right?
They were the ones that said there were 3 things that we were trying to do. So the 3-legged stool became one of those analogies that kind of fit into place. So we have the passengers check mark. The growing jobs, that's the expansion of opportunities for businesses at the airport. We're working on that. It's a slow process because everything we're doing is from zero. Mm-hmm. You go to another airport, they already have ramp. We have to build it. So there's opportunities there. But from an educational standpoint, one of the key things that we're working on is Haney. Working with Haney and potentially moving the airframe and power plant program to the airport. So we get these maintenance, repair, and overhaul programs that Becca, who you interviewed, I think last
Harden.
week.
That's right. Bay Economic Development Alliance CEO, I believe.
Yes, exactly. Mm-hmm. So in working with Becca and with Jennifer from Florida's Great Northwest.
Yes.
So all those are people that we work with every day. But one of the things we all agree on is we need to educate people in our community so they stay. And if we can create jobs for them, at these maintenance, repair, and overhaul, and they're good paying jobs to be an airplane mechanic. Mm-hmm. And so we think this is a great opportunity to take that program from Haney. It'll still be part of Haney, but it'll move it to the airport in an enhanced campus. So change the kind of the way things work. Mm-hmm. We have some really kind of interesting ideas that from the time you apply is like you're going to work.
Right.
So that if a company comes and sets up business in our community, well, we want them to hire people, we'll do some of their training. And all this is kind of in the works.
Yeah.
And it's really kind of unofficial. Right. Because here's Parker talking about something with education.
Right.
But you have to have the vision and be able to share it.
Well, what I love, when we talk about good news in Bay County, one of the things I love is seeing all the different pieces and parts, the folks that are leaders of these major segments of our community in different ways that are seeing how the pieces fit. So one of our previous guests, we had both the dean and assistant dean at Florida State come on recently on the Panama City branch of it. And as they did, they talked about a variety of different educational opportunities that are being provided here. There we were actually talking about the research hospital mm-hmm. through Tallahassee Memorial. Now, as a result, here we're talking about another educational opportunity through Haney Vocational Technical Center. What I know is I've got people listening and watching that would love for their kids to grow up and have gainful employment that is beyond just, say, being a... And these are, by the way, we love school teachers and we love our first responders. Yep. But traditionally in Bay County, outside of those, if you don't have a military background, it's hard to find a higher paying job in Bay County. You guys are working on that. And I know I'm supposed to be asking you questions, but here's what's neat. As I was talking to the leadership at Haney, they're excited about this 2-year program that high school students could go after they graduate high school. They could go to this program, and in 2 years, they would be learning how to work on aircraft. Now, you mentioned two parts to that the average person doesn't understand: the airframe and power plant. So it's called the A&P program. It's the outside and it's the inside of the plane,
it's
right?
The engine and the frame, exactly.
And so if I'm a grandparent and I've got a grandson that is mechanically inclined and really would love to do that, people may not know that this program, when they get that certification, they literally could work on planes anywhere worldwide. We want them to stay local now, let me say it that way. But to know that these opportunities are coming, that's good news.
That is. I mean, and then let's take it another step further. So now you get that technical training, but let's train you so that you have an opportunity to be a leader. So we send you to some management school at Gulf Coast or at FSUPC. Mm-hmm. All those are great opportunities, or even Embry-Riddle. You want to go into the aviation field. That's one of the very well-known aviation schools.
Oh, yeah.
I got my master's degree from there, so I'll have to do a plug for Embry-Riddle. But at the end of the day, it creates so many opportunities for the future.
Right.
And, people are a lot smarter sometimes than we give them credit for. And if they see these opportunities to grow and improve themselves personally as well as growing in their lives, mm-hmm. What more could you ask for?
No, it's a great thing. I want to mention this because I think it's fascinating to me. When I was talking to you about the role that you're in, and how do you end up wanting to be involved with airplanes? You've always loved airplanes, and you either wanted to be a pilot or you wanted to be someone involved like you are at the airport with planes. And so it's kind of neat to me to see the person that's in charge of so much of what's happening in an airport like this be someone that truly loves aviation.
Aviation has been really good to me. My opportunities in Orlando were all that of a big airport, and I got to take that. And I think part of the success of this airport is the fact that we took some of those big ideas mm-hmm. and packaged them in a small package. Mm-hmm. So I think when I first got here, I used to call it the Cleveland Indians. We're in the major league, but we're a small team. So we look at it that way. And if you can play with the big boys, then you get to do it. Look where we are. We have 4 legacy airlines.
Tell me what that means. What are those legacy airlines?
So we have American, Delta, Southwest, and United. Those are all the 4 largest airlines in the world. Mm-hmm. So they're all servicing Panama City, Panama City Beach, the beaches of South Walton, the entire region, and across the Panhandle.
So for people that are not real familiar with this, they've seen an article here or there, not real familiar with exactly what's happening at the airport. I was asking, like, when did it become more than just Delta? I mean, but like in 2018, we brought one or two more of these in?
In 2018, we added American, and I'm trying to remember, I think it was 15 or 16 we added United. But
all of this is since the airport moved to the bigger location.
Southwest and Delta were the first two, and immediately after Southwest announced Delta upgauged, put in bigger airplanes. So those regional jets that were flying in and out a long time, we don't get those anymore. As a matter of fact, we know that United last summer upgauged to an Airbus, big narrow body. We think, I have a pretty good guess that American's going to do that this summer. So we're going to continue to grow and continue to see bigger airplanes servicing our market, which makes people very happy.
So that means unlike when I remember being a child, we didn't fly much, but when we did, I remembered having to kind of cock my head when I'd get on the plane. You'd walk out on the tarmac, and then you'd go up at the steps. And these are full-size planes.
Yeah, you walk down the loading bridge. If you're tall enough, you may still have to duck to get through the door, but I don't have to do that.
Well, but that's what the 10,000-foot runway does. You can get these big jets.
It creates opportunities.
And it creates, some of that has to do with how many people it can bring in as far as just bringing visitors in. There's also, I get hung up in some of the lingo between general aviation and commercial, but there is and go ahead and explain the difference between the two, would you? Because I don't want to confuse people.
So the easiest way to look at it is commercial aviation is airlines and cargo.
Okay.
General aviation is corporate jets, single and twin engine airplanes.
Okay.
That's probably the simplest dividing line.
Well, we have had a lot of growth. I think it's okay to say this. We've had a number of us know that we see people that we see on television and that are stars in a variety of different ways. There's a lot of them that seem to have discovered that end of the beaches out there to the west. And so many of those will bring their planes down here, and just people that are fairly wealthy and have their own private jet. That's a part of what's happening with the airport itself, right? That market's gone up.
That market has grown tremendously. I like to call it COVIDity. So during COVIDity,
I love it. A new word.
During COVIDity, there was a big change. People weren't wanting to fly at first. They didn't want to fly. It wasn't safe to fly, so they flew in their corporate jets or friends or neighbors, or they chartered one and they flew in. And a lot of people have discovered that's not a bad way to travel. Shelter, which is our FBO, which is kind of the gas station for airplanes on the airport.
Okay.
They were turning 150 jets a day last summer.
Can you say that again? How many jets did they have coming in?
150.
Oh. Oh.
That's a big number.
That's a lot.
Yeah. And, they're all coming or going. It changes the market.
Is that, I want to go, and you can fix anything I mess up with this, you can help me with it. We landed the number 4 spot on Simple Flying's 2021 list of airports in the U.S. to increase seat capacity following the pandemic. Now, that may not even play in the number you just said of the 150 private jets, but it has to play into a little bit the growth we're seeing at the airport in general.
Absolutely. I think we just talked a little while ago about the Panhandle being discovered.
Yes, sir.
This clearly shows for Panama City Beach, for our airport, Northwest Florida Beaches International, to be ranked number 4 in the nation. Of all the airports around this nation, to be ranked number 4 in the increased capacity following the pandemic.
Yep.
That to me is...
There's a competitive part of me that likes to say number 4, we're doing good, Bay County.
Well, that's why that's one of my not to step into your role, but that's one of the things I preach about. Is we're number 4, and here we are, and I'll go up and say, little old Panama City.
Yeah,
we're number 4.
That's right. They keep coming back.
We beat out all our neighbors.
Yes, we did.
But in the top 10, the 3 in the top 10 were in the Panhandle. So
there's a lot of great reasons for people to come to Florida. Taxes are a great reason, or lack of, for people to come to Florida. Safety is still one of those. I've seen some surveys that some different home developers have done, and safety was a huge issue, and is still very significant in our area relative to other parts of the country. And people like freedom, and we have a little bit more of that here in Florida, or at least have in this COVIDity. Did I use that term right?
Yeah.
And so
During COVIDity.
Yeah. So all of those things are factors. But there's something about this beach sand. Is that helping to sell Florida a little bit?
So we talked a little bit about this before, but this box is what I take. And here, while we're talking, I'll do what I do with the
Can I play in the sand?
Why don't you play in the sand while we're talking?
Okay.
So we go out and meet with the airlines, and when I do go meet them, I take that box, and it's full of our sand. And it's not just regular sand. It's right off the beach before I go. So it's fresh sand.
It's real.
And the airlines know me as the Sandman. So
I love it.
We've taken that, and obviously you try to do whatever you can to make a difference, because they meet with hundreds of people every year.
Right.
And you make it so that what are you going to do to be memorable?
Right.
And if the Sandman works, it works for me.
So I think this is awesome that there's something relaxing about this, just having this beach right there. But if I'm seeking to understand Parker McClellan as the executive director in this role, one of your roles is to literally go to the airlines, and you have a window to sell them or to talk to them about why they should come or add more flights to Bay County. Is that ECP?
So one of the things that we talked about earlier was, how does the airport work?
Yes.
So let's kind of turn, if I can.
Please, this is a great time to tell them how it works.
So we are an independent special district of the state of Florida.
Okay.
So there's absolutely no tax dollars that go from this community to the airport.
Now, there's probably some people that are watching at the very beginning when we were talking about moving the airport and all, they're like, I can't believe my tax dollars are going for that. You're saying that's not how this all works.
There's no tax dollars. The only people that pay are the people that use the airport.
Okay.
So it's all in your ticket price.
That's good news.
Now, there's federal money that may come down, and they probably could track it down, but there's no money.
It's not local tax
There's
dollars.
not local tax dollars that go. So we have to run it like a business.
Okay.
So we can't go and say, spend frivolously. So we have a budget. We follow it. We're very conservative to make sure that we maintain a place in the marketplace, maintain our place in the marketplace. So what we do is, to go back to the point about why I go out and market, is I have to create more business for the airport. So we'll go out and meet with the airlines. We go out and meet with businesses, and that sandbox, or what I call the treasure chest, goes with me to all those meetings. And number one, it's an icebreaker.
Oh, yeah.
And number two, that sand is really cool.
It is cool. They're going to be jealous that they can't get into that sand. For those of us that live here, we love the beaches. There's just something special and therapeutic about the sound. I would imagine that the sense and the touch of the sand it brings back memories from when I was a kid that are relaxing.
Well, there's sand, and then there's our sand.
Now, that's true. The world's most beautiful beaches, and there's a lot of places that may claim it, but we really are the world's most beautiful beaches.
Yep.
So one of the other misconceptions that I think is, I've had to recalibrate a little bit, because again, all these years I have been, as I've tried to learn about how business is working in Bay County, many of the hoteliers through the years talk about us being a drive-to destination, and for many, many years that's what we've been. And we do have large numbers of people from Alabama and Georgia and other places that drive here. But even during the pandemic, as you described, people borrowing their neighbor's airplane, I'm not sure exactly how all that works, but they literally were flying here during the pandemic.
They were. I mean, the leadership in our community, across the region and in the state, when the governor opened the beaches and opened the short-term rentals,
he did every businessman and really every citizen in Florida a favor.
Absolutely. And in the month of April, the first part of the pandemic, our numbers were no different than any other airport in the nation, down 95%. I mean, we did projects called Projects Without Passengers, because there was nobody there. You could take a bowling ball and roll it down and not hit a thing and go down through the whole terminal. So we took that opportunity to do some projects.
Right.
But at the same time, realizing, okay, you literally sat down every day going, okay, what's our plan? What's the plan if we do this? What's the plan if we do that? And we put together plans about, okay, it's going to go back, but not at this exponential curve that it did come back as.
Hey, I told you in the pre-interview that I really like the idea of being entrepreneurial, and we as a congregation, our leadership, my team, we've tried to be. And any of us that have had to kind of change, like we've had to retool in some ways, or at least we did during the pandemic, because we just couldn't do what we normally would do the way we would do it. So here we had to record. We literally recorded our services during the week, and then we'd replay them on Sunday morning. And I mean, I didn't have all the people. It was crazy. But we did some other things. We've retooled a lot of our technology and how we do database and a lot of the video side of things that we do. We learned to do podcasts and Facebook videos and all that. The point is, what you're telling me, it's another sign that y'all aren't just a government entity. I mean, government can be good, but what you guys have done is you've continued to get better and be strategic and intentional with the time and the resources that you had all during COVIDity. Is that right?
Exactly.
Awesome.
Because we had to position ourselves to be able to react to whatever happens.
Well, that's good leadership.
And even when you look at during the hurricane, we didn't have a lot of damage,
right?
But it was very key and essential that we were part of being that platform for recovery.
Yeah, so you said platform for recovery. I said, well, what did that mean? So put it in, and the way you said it made tons of sense to me and will to our listeners.
So what we did was we made sure that the airport, when I was in Orlando, our motto was, we may doze, but we never close. And during Charlie, there was a King Air. The guy was out flying, and we're like, this guy's an idiot. But because we were open, he had a place to land.
Right.
Now, and you know what? He may find out. Maybe if he ever hears it, he knows who I'm talking about.
Right.
But so
you said it was right during the hurricane or before the hurricane?
Just in front of the hurricane.
Well, what you said is true. I mean, he probably has repented of his ways.
But we look at that and said, okay, we were there.
Yeah.
And so we brought that same philosophy forward, and we were at the airport so that when the storm went through that afternoon, the next morning we had 38 helicopters at the airport ready to begin the assessment and the recovery.
I love that.
That makes us the platform for recovery. And quite honestly, we had everybody and their mother. I mean, we had the president. President came, vice president came. We were very integral in providing office spaces for people for meetings that happened.
All of that's incredible. And a lot of that had to do with where you guys were located because of movements that had been made. And I mean, it mattered, the progress you've made leading up to that.
Yeah, it was an interesting time.
I want to make mention of a couple of projects. Speaking to those that have been around Bay County for just a little while. That 388 corridor, I mean, it's got a long track record of being a 2-lane road that can be a difficult place, especially at night. Even since the new airport has opened, there's a lot of traffic coming out. Those of us that cut through the back way to get to the beach because there's less traffic there, we've seen a lot of trees go down as they've been expanding and trying to make that area safer, but there's a lot of growth coming. I guess I'm kind of long-winded in my question, but basically that traffic pattern is going to change as they do some things with a, quote, roundabout.
So there's going to be the largest roundabout in Northwest Florida will be at the entrance to the airport. It's going to be a 2-lane roundabout. Probably in the next 4 to 5 months, you'll see our sign pop back up in the middle.
Okay.
But there's 2 years left on the project.
Right.
It's the realignment of 388 from the airport west to 79, which will go into the entrance to Latitude Margaritaville.
Which is the huge
active adult retirement community, 55 and older.
I'm not old enough to go. That's what I'm told.
Yes. So we've got that. And then as you go into the roundabout, and then let's go to the east. Yeah. Now there's plans being developed to 4-lane that.
Right.
Because we all have concerns about the accidents and that have happened on 388. People get in a hurry.
Yeah.
And I drive it every day.
Part of what I think is such good news about all of it, and the reason I wanted to bring it up is because part of the note here talks about there being like a 30% less chance of a severe crash at that intersection. I mean, they've done the studies on it. They're trying to be intentional, right? And so if I'm looking at what kind of infrastructure things are happening, how are we going to handle all these numbers? This increased traffic, we're actually making provisions traffic-wise. They're making provisions with the roads, even to be able to service the new all of these thousands and thousands of new homes that are coming into our west, which is great. And then the increased traffic that we anticipate coming in and out of the airport, right?
All those are planning for the future. We have vision now.
Mm-hmm.
388 had no vision. I think it was overlaid just either before the airport opened.
Yeah.
But I've heard it was before that. I was not here, but I heard it was pretty bad. But they improved.
There's a lot of roads that have needed some improvement, and this is one of them.
Yeah. So I think all this is all part of that as we take that next step as we grow into the future.
Right. Well, we're definitely seeing the infrastructure coming in all along the way, which I think is incredible. 10,000-foot runway. This is a big deal because it lets us get the bigger planes that are in the air. That puts us in a different market relative to just bringing business here, right? I mean, if we're wanting to be able to bring businesses and higher paying jobs and more jobs, you have to have a runway like that to do it. And so doesn't that put us in a different ballgame?
Our runway will handle any airplanes flying today.
Okay.
So we can handle anything. We have we've developed 1,200 of our 4,000 acres. So there's a lot.
Okay.
There's a lot more to development. One of the questions everybody always asks is about the Crosswind Runway. So I'm going to jump on that one before you ask me.
Yeah, tell me about it.
The Crosswind Runway.
I don't know if I've heard of it. But
you haven't?
No, educate me.
So if you look at the airport on aerial, there's the main runway,
right?
And then there's some cleared going off to the northeast.
Okay.
So that was going to be that's the Crosswind Runway. In the future, that will be developed. However, there's no funding available for that today, but it's on our list for general aviation pilots. They would prefer to have a crosswind runway because when you're flying and there's a crosswind, it's a lot easier to land into the wind than it is with a crosswind. So we understand that, but we have to look at the finances behind it. We anticipate that it's about a $50 million project. And it's not right now. It's not eligible for any FAA funding. So that puts it on the list, but other things are above it. So
absolutely. Well, I'm absolutely thrilled to see all the intentionality with the growth that we've had out there at the airport. I was asking you on a personal level how much you enjoy the Bay County area, and I can just tell you that I meet folks that come to Bay County and they love it. I meet others that come and maybe they don't like it as much. But for someone that has been here now, I think you said the last 12 years. Did I get that right?
Yeah, 2010.
You literally were bragging on the quality of life in Bay County earlier, and I want people to know that you love the area you live in.
It is. I mean, I came from Central Florida, and I call it the Peninsula and the Panhandle because I think some people forget that there's Panhandle.
Right.
Once we get that one time zone thing squared away, we'll be even better. But at the end of the day, the quality of life that our community brings is a southern charm and the hospitality that you only get in the South.
Absolutely.
And and add the beaches to that. Add that sand back to it. And you get that. I mean, look what we have today. We've got to the north, you can go hunting. You can go hunting one day and fishing the next.
Oh, yeah.
And
now you're talking
where else can you do that? Not so this is a great place to be.
While the family's at the beach, if they want to be.
Yeah.
You can fish, you can hunt, you can do all kind of fun stuff.
I'll just take my RV.
And you can go to the Northwest Florida's largest, what did you call the? Roundabout. I mean, it's like sightseeing at its finest. You told me, and we're about to close this out, but you told me that with surveys that were done, you would think people would want to come to an area like this because of golf or a lot of other things. And you said that the airport actually was like, that's a huge thing to have a close airport, for people to be able to get to and from, the area that they move to. That's a pretty significant, I mean, again, we're going back to the quality of having an airport like we've got. Don't surveys show that matters? It
ranks higher than golf.
Higher than golf.
In some of the surveys that have been done. And that becomes a card that we get to play as we look at the growth that we've had today.
Yep.
And if I can, let me
Please.
talk about a couple of projects that we've
Yes,
we've
please.
got going in the future.
Excite us about the future.
So
So let me shut you down too soon now. If you got more stuff,
as we look to the future,
Yeah.
where there's some space that used to be in the terminal that was going to be designed, that was originally planned for customs. We've now decided that customs is better off to be somewhere else when it's necessary.
yeah,
So we've got a concourse expansion program that's getting ready to kick off. We're redesigning a bag room so that we can handle more bags. On a Saturday, I don't know that many people know this, but during the like this time of year, or actually in February, Southwest has 6 flights a day.
oh,
In the summer, on Saturdays, they go to 26.
oh,
And so that's a lot of big increase. On a Saturday, we'll have over 100 commercial operations at our airport in the summer.
that's a lot.
With Delta enhancing their flights, American doing the same thing, and United. So we have all these opportunities. So not only that, we also have to redesign our checkpoint, which means that we're looking at building an addition to the terminal so that we can move bag claims, so we can move the checkpoint. There's a lot of things that are moving parts so that we can be prepared for the future.
I think I read in one of my notes that you guys, with all this growth, y'all are actually there's some hiring opportunities there too. Is that fair? Do y'all have any people that you're looking for with security or people that do bags? Or
I think the TSA is always looking for people. That's a federal job.
Everybody's hiring, right?
That's a federal job. We've got a couple of professional positions. We've got maintenance jobs. All the companies at the airport are looking for somebody.
Okay.
So it's a great opportunity. It's one that, I don't see that it's going to be changing anywhere in the near future, only getting better.
Yeah. Well, and I will throw one other article that I saw. The News Herald ran an article probably a month ago talking about the first part of this year. And numbers are up for this year, too, over previous days, right, as far as the amount of flights in, like, January, February timeframe.
So we've had 12 months now of more than double-digit growth. Last year, we ended at 26% over 2019. But the real number is in July of last year. We were 60% over our peak year. That's a lot of people going through that little building. So I applaud our entire staff for that, because it's a lot. It's a lot to take. You're stressing the facility.
Yes.
So it's just, okay, how can we do this? I'm sure you'd like to have 60% more congregation, but where are you going to put them?
Every certain percentage of growth, you have to restructure the organization and how you do things and where the lines go and who does what.
And they're not permanent, so they're just temporary fixes. So, that's as we do all that dynamic planning.
Changing processes is fun.
Yep.
But listen, you painted such a beautiful picture of the not just the beautiful beaches that everybody loves here in Northwest Florida, but also the potential of what is coming, what has come, what is still on tap down the road. And I think we could easily say that with Northwest Florida Beaches International Airport, or ECP, the best is yet to come. Is that fair?
I'll respond in your terms. Amen, brother.
All righty. I love it. Thank you, Parker, for being our guest on this episode of Good News Bay.
I enjoyed it anytime. I enjoyed speaking with you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us for the Good News Bay podcast, where we are making Bay County brighter one conversation at a time. Please help us share this good news and change the conversation by liking, sharing, and subscribing to the podcast.